Hi, and welcome to a new video of this MOOC. In this video, we are going to continue the implementation of our TicTacToe application. In the previous video, we created the application and a game module that contains every component related with the game. We also created the game, the header, the board, and the square components, and we started its data implementation. Now I'm going to create the state service, again inside game module, that will be the service injected in the components that needs to subscribe or to modify the state of the application. And this will be possible thanks to a behavior subject property included in this service. I will also implement the needed methods to get and to set the value of this state, and also a method for updating the value of a specific square when the user clicks on it. So let's see the implementation of this service. We have a private property that will be accessed through the set and get methods. That is a behavior subject containing an state property. This state property, remember, that is an interface that we will create and have two values, the turn and the values of the squares, okay? So in the constructor of this service, we need to initialize this behavior subject, including the default values for both properties. Then we will have the getters and the setters. In order to get the value of the behavior subject, as you can see here, we are returning here the object that corresponds to the behavior subject and will be used by components in order to subscribe to changes in the state. And then we have two methods for getting and setting the real value, the actual value of the state. As you can see here, the difference between both methods is that when we talk about the behavior subject, I have chosen the notation of including at the end of the word a dollar icon, okay? As you can see here, for getting the current value of the behavior subject, I use the getValue method, and for updating the value, I send a new value using the next method with the new state value. Then I have an updateValue method in which, passing the position of an square via the row and column values, I will update the turn and the value of this specific square. So you can see here, first I check if the square has not been clicked before, and then checking the current value of the turn and of the turn, I will update both properties, the turn and the array of values in the state property. Then I need a reset method in order to reset the state if in case I need it in the future. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to implement this state service, but of course firstly I need to create it using the command line interface tools of Angular. So ng generate service inside game module, and this creates inside the game folder the needed files in order to implement it. I'm going now to the code editor, and as you can see here, I have the specific file in which I need to implement the code. So the first thing I need to do is to import the behavior subject object, behavior subject, from the specific library, that in this case is Reactive4JS library. And then I'm going to create the interface for the status. So I'm going to export interface because probably I will need it later outside the service state with the two properties, the turn, that is just a string, and then the values matrix that contains a matrix of strings. Okay, and now I'm going to paste here in the code of the state service the code we have just seen in the slides. Okay, so I have the state property, the constructor, the getters and the setters, and finally the update value and the reset value methods. And with this I have ready the implementation of this service. Now I'm going to provide the state service in the game module for making it available in components to be injectable, and I'm going to modify the code of header, board and square components in order to get and to update the real status of the application. Okay, so I'm going to the game module in order to provide the state service, so I have to import the service, state service, from the corresponding file, and as in this case is in the same folder, it's just a state service, and I have to include it in the list of providers of this module. Okay, so here I have a state service. Great. The next step is to modify the board component in order to get here the real value of the squares. So I'm going to import again the state service, and in this case this is in another folder, so I have to go to the specific folder, and I'm going to copy this line because I will need it in the future. Now I'm going to inject here the service, state service, and I'm going to assign to the values, this dot values property, the state service dot state dot values property. Okay, now I'm going to modify the square. I'm going to the square component, I'm going to import again the state service, and I'm going to create a private local property with the state service because I will need it in the method in order to in the handle square method in order to update the real state of the application. So I'm going to inject here also the service, state service, that is of type state service, and I'm going to assign it to the local property. So this dot state service, it's equal to state service. Now in the handle square click method, when a user clicks on a square, I can call to this to the state service method, state service dot update value with the specific value of the row and of the column. So this dot row, this dot column. Okay, and now what I have to do also is to modify the template in order to show the real value of each square. In order to do so, I'm going to use interpolation, and I'm going to subscribe to changes in the state observable. So from the state service, I get the state observable, so a state with the dollar sign, and then using the async pipe, I have here always the latest value of the state of the application. I now access to values and then to the value of the specific square with row and column. Okay, so with this, if I go to my application and I reload, I can see how when a user clicks on a specific square, I'm updating the real state of the application. The next step is to modify the header component in order to show the real turn in every moment. So I'm going to the header component, I'm going to import again the state service, and also to include here a private property again that is a state service of type state service, and assigning it to the injected service. So again the same that in the other component, state service, and this dot state service is assigned to the injected service. So now in the template I can put here turn off, and again using interpolation, putting here the real state, the real turn. So again I'm going to use a subscription to a state service dot state with the dollar, and using the assign pipe I will get here the real turn of the real turn of the from the state. Okay, so if I go here again to the application, I can see how the turn is changing: turn on player 0, turn on player X, etc. Finally, I'm going to modify the square template in order to make a square not clickable after a user clicks on it. Because now, as you can see in our application, when you click in a button, it's true that the next time the value is not updated, but this is not the behavior or the best behavior we can expect. So I'm going to create here in the square component style sheet 2 new classes: clickable, that will put the cursor to pointer and make the typical hand in the cursor, and then not clickable, that will put the cursor with the icon of not allowed. Now, using a property binding, a class binding in the template, in the square template, I'm going to include or to assign the class clickable when the value of the square is the default one. So I have to check the state service dot state dot values and get the value of this specific square with the column and the row, and check if this is equal to the default value. Then if I create another class binding that assign the not clickable when the value is not equal to the default one. Okay, so now if I check again the application, you can see how I have the cursor pointer when the square is not clicked, and when I click on a square, I have the icon of not allowing the click. Okay, so with this, I have all the needed steps for having the implementation of our TicTacToe, that is our first complex application using Angular. See you in the next video. Bye.